Teresa, your
Being
mic's
9
not
o'clock, we call the meeting to
on. Your
order.
mic's not on, but we might need
Pledge
it.
of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Maybe it is.
Nope.
Nope. Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
First order of business is to approve the agenda.
So moved.
We're looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, there we
You
go.
don't have anything you want to add today, do you, Fred?
Well, I think I got my ducks a little better lined up
Then
this morning.
I'll second it then.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. And we need to approve the minutes of 2 weeks ago.
65 and 40.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
65 and 40.
I'll second it. They look good.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion, any corrections or anything? Okay, all those approved, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Do we have anyone that wishes to do public comment this morning at the beginning of the meeting? Okay, thank you. Mr. Podozensky.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
I have 5 items for the agenda this morning. So the first item is award contract CP 2018-01 for aggregate shouldering. We had a bid opening yesterday on this. We had 3 bidders. The low bid was Rochester Sand and Gravel at $16 per ton for a total price of $160,560. That's substantially below our estimate of 14.21% below our estimate. The other 2 bidders were a little over our estimate, so we feel we got a really good price with that. So recommend the award go to Rochester Sand and Gravel.
So moved. Second.
Got a second? Any further discussion?
We use those. Have we used them before?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
A division of Matthew.
Yes.
Everything.
The next project is CP 2017-02. It's a bridge rehabilitation project on CASA 4. We had 4 bidders. The low bid was Icon Constructors LLC. They bid $145,945.25. They're about $4,000 over our estimate, but still within budget. So,
Make a motion to approve Icahn Constructors for the County Road Bridge Project.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, any discussion?
This is the one that's going to move forward a little quicker, hopefully.
yeah, so this
There's more
project,
safety.
this project, the edge of the roadway is starting to fall away, and this rain over this last week has kind of sped up the process with that deterioration of the edge of the pavement. So we were going to hope to do the project in mid-July start, and now we're going to push it up to as soon as they can get the materials in. We want to get that project going. We'll put some barrels out there to kind of protect the edge of the roadway, keep traffic away from the edge. So the sooner we can get going on this one, the better.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Next project is approve the final payment for project SAP 028-599-091. This is a bridge replacement in Sheldon Township on Sweet Bottom Road. Original contract, $214,103. Work certified, $214,911.34. So the total price was slightly over the original contract, but pretty much right in line with what we expected. So
Make a motion to approve 28,599,091.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
okay, the final contract to award would be project CP 2018-05. This is crack filling for various highways. We received 3 quotes on this. The low quote was Farner Asphalt Sealers LLC at $1.46 per pound. That equates to $87,600 is the contracted amount. Our estimate was at $92,082, so slightly under the estimate again on this one.
I'll make a motion to approve Farner Contracting for CP 2018-05.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, then the final item I have today is airport consultant selection. We've received proposals from 3 different consultants to be our airport consultant for the next 5 years, to lead the county through the process with the master plan, airport layout plan. We had a selection committee that consisted of 2 county commissioners, county EDA individual along with myself. We went through that process. I believe that we all felt that we had 3 very well qualified consultants. It was a good process. In the end, the consultant that received the highest ranking was Bolton and Mink. So the recommendation of that committee would be to hire Bolton and Mink as our airport consultant to lead the process going forward. After the board does approve a consultant, then we go through the process with negotiating what the wage would be. So there is potential that we do not come to terms with the wage and then ultimately go back for a different consultant. But I don't see that happening. I think we can work out an agreement with them. Mr. Zeminski or Walter, one of you 2 want to comment?
We were part of the selection committee, and like you said, all 3 were very capable and good, but I too would make a motion to go with Bolton and Mink.
Yeah, I'll second that. As far as discussion, I'll just add to what Teresa's saying. All 3, they're actually kind of fun interviews. All 3 were very good. It was kind of a difficult, I guess, to choose between the 3 of them, but ultimately I felt Bolton and Mink had a little bit, say, better vision of what's going on in Houston County, but I thought they all 3 did an exceptional job, and I'm pleased with Bolton and Mink. I'd have been pleased with the other ones too. So.
Okay. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Brian.
I've got a couple questions before. Where are we at with the airport committee or?
So we had our initial kickoff meeting with the airport commission, what was it, 3 weeks ago? Maybe, yeah, probably about 3 weeks ago. So now that we have a consultant, we'll get another meeting set up here as we start to proceed with the master plan, the airport layout plan.
Okay.
I would anticipate having another meeting maybe in another month and a half from now.
Okay. And then somebody asked me about an organization called the Sheriff's Posse, to do with drones. Is that what it is? Has anybody heard about that?
I'm actually on the posse.
Oh,
They do a lot of things, water rescues from kids lost, anything helping the city of La Crescent police. They had some burglaries.
okay.
Any kind of help any law enforcement might need, the posse is there, and they raise funds like for dog for the sheriff's department.
Okay, I'm sorry, I guess I was
No,
not
no, that's
aware.
great.
but-
It was in effect for quite a few years, and we probably went 8-10 years without a posse, I think, and then it's been brought up again in the last 4 years or so.
Oh, okay, so who would, if somebody's interested,
Leo Simons.
Leo,
Simons, S-I-M-O-N-S.
and he's in
He
Caledonia?
lives in Caledonia.
Okay,
He would love to hear from him.
okay. Yeah, this person is in the Brownsville area, but he's
Yeah.
very interested in county
Yeah, we have
goings on.
people,
and-
Brownsville, La Crescent.
Good. Okay,
Real good bunch.
thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Now, EDA Director Burgee is ill and not able to be here this morning, and so Mr. Miller hopefully will do the presentation of, we gotta find it here. Here we go, okay.
Well, I don't have a gizmo. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, okay. There you go. Whoops. It'll be all right.
Okay. Okay, we had a meeting on May 2nd, and Charlie Reed of the forthcoming Chuck's Old Fashioned Meats attended the EDA meeting in request for financing for the startup of his new business. The initial request was for more than what the EDA felt comfortable with at the time. We're excited about the project, but we're just cautious about how we dole out our funds. And so $10,000 loan for startup costs was approved, and that's taking second position to the City of Caledonia, who also approved a loan. For those of you who aren't familiar with, there was a Chinese restaurant in the location on, is that Main Street?
Yep.
Yeah, the old folks would rather
Actually,
remember it
Kingston.
as Albert's Grocery, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Kingston and South
Yes.
First.
So we're encouraged. He's very enthusiastic and seems to be online to get this going. So that's the recommendation from the EDA Board of Directors is we unanimously passed a motion to recommend that we approve Chuck's Old Fashioned Meats LLC's request for assistance by providing a $10,000 loan at the 2018 set rate in terms of 3.5% for 7 years. So that's what's before us. Sorry for wrecking here. Anybody have any questions or?
No, there's a meat market was in town for a short period. It was based out of the same one that's in Eitzen.
Right.
Seemed like it was doing a great job. Seemed busy, and I guess, I don't know what the cause it was here a few months gone.
That was a regulatory problem,
Yeah.
basically.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, we discussed that.
Okay.
Yeah, they were okay with the regulators when they just had their Eitzen operation, but then when they got into a separate location, well, then somehow some different regulations came into play, and it was just prohibitively expensive for them to try to deal with that. They were processing the meat and hauling it up here, and that's a different set of regulations that they had to deal with, rather than Chuck is just going to buy bulk beef and pork and whatever other meats he buys, and he'll do some value added things, but basically he's not involved in the slaughter end of it, and that's where the problem was
Okay.
coming in.
So that's where Albert's old grocery meat market was at one time.
Yep.
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve Chuck's Old Fashioned Meats Loan of $10,000.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
I would just mention, as long as we're on that,
Yeah.
that as far as the rest of the EDA meeting, loan were reviewed, and we're on track. We're doing well. And
Yeah.
what has been loaned out and what is supposed to be paid back, it's working. So, again, I encourage anybody that knows somebody that wants to start something business-wise, certainly check with the EDA office, because it's a good leg up for people who
Yeah.
want to get going.
The EDA basically is gap funding. If a business has startup costs that are somewhat more than a lending institution will let them have, they can come to EDA and apply for those funds at obviously a lower interest rate than the going rate, to make up the difference between what they have to have and what they can get from a lending institution. That's the whole deal. And it is really working very well. I think there are a couple of loans where businesses went out of business for one reason or another, but those numbers were not substantial. So the EDA is really, at this point, the Houston County EDA is really in pretty good shape and has money there to loan out on the basis that I talked about. Mr. Locker.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today I have two recommendations from the Planning Commission, one for a conditional use permit and one for an interim use permit. I'll begin with the interim use permit for Matthew Construction. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this interim use permit to the County Board. This is for county highway repair. They're setting up a temporary asphalt plant. Will operate from shortly after the permit would be granted until the end of the year. They didn't anticipate it taking that long, but didn't want to build in any artificial deadlines. Your packets had the order with the findings that were put together by the Planning Commission. If there are any desire to go into those findings, I certainly could. If there's not, I would suggest that you could adopt those findings as prepared by the Planning Commission. Any questions anyone has regarding this permit?
They look pretty specific, and it is interim use permit, right?
Yes,
Okay.
this permit will expire at the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
There were no objections to granting the permit from anyone at the meeting.
Yeah, it looked pretty detailed.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to grant the interim use permit for, I think it was for
Matthew Construction.
Matthew Construction and Glenn Kennenberg? Is that combination?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We need a second.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded to grant an interim use permit. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Secondly, Planning Commission recommended a conditional use permit. This is for the area previously Camp Winnebago, now being referred to as Winnebago Springs. The recommendation is for a event and wedding center. Again, your packets contained recommended conditions and findings that the Planning Commission adopted. In this case, there are a multitude of conditions that are on there, and one of them, I think, warrants discussion this morning. And this has to do with the possibility of concert-type events at this location. The applicant's idea is that they would partner with nonprofits or other organizations that would, in large part, manage and oversee those types of events. And because of this, there wasn't abundant information on how they might be conducted. So what the Planning Commission ended up doing was building in an approval for this type of event in concept and requiring that it come to the county board. So that wouldn't be a public hearing, but it would be a request permission from the county board for each of these events. And there are some parameters that go around them. In general, would limit them to 2 a year. And then there are some suggestions for the type of information that ought to come to the county board when they're proposing an event such as this. I guess I'd be interested in impressions of that, and I'd certainly be open to questions on it too from folks.
The basic reason for that request was that in the process of starting this, what's the name of it? Winnebago Springs, there we go. I keep wanting to call it Camp Winnebago, and it's Winnebago Springs. In the process of starting this up, the Myers were approached by a charitable organization and asked if it would be possible for them to host a concert, a benefit concert for their particular thing at some point during the year using that facility. And Myers said, well, sure, let's put it in and see what we can do with it. This is not a request for a highly publicized, massive rock concert type of venue at all. That's not what it is. So we can, I hope, kind of put that potential problem to rest.
Was there a proposed date for anything?
I would anticipate they would be during the warmer months, but we're not specifying that in here. They would be required to come 2 months prior, so they would need to come to the county board 2 months ahead of a proposed event, except for this year, and we took that down to 30 days just because things might need to be expedited if they wanted to conduct one this year. But moving forward after this year, it would be a 2-month lead time where the county board would need to approve that before they could begin.
So 2 months ahead of time, they'd apply for a permit to hold a concert, or?
It's board approval, I
Yeah,
believe.
Yeah, board approval, so it would be something that could happen faster than a public hearing.
Okay, is it parking a problem at all?
It potentially could be, and that's one of the areas where this document, the recorded CUP in this case, would advise the board to look for information from them when they propose
An
a
event?
music event like this as to where folks would park, how that would work. There's a couple of, I guess I'll just run through them. I'm suggesting that when they come in, the applicant or the event organizer should demonstrate they have permission from the landowners to conduct the event. They should talk about anticipated attendance, parking, security, temporary fencing, bathroom facilities, staging, alcohol, and food. So
Pretty much covers, yeah.
yeah, they should provide updates on that, and there are some built-in parameters within the recommendation from the Planning Commission. 2 events a year, Friday and Saturdays only. The music must end by midnight. Maximum attendance of 1,500 guests, and there is a maximum decibel level as measured from any location, and we keyed off of prior permits that were issued by the county for that. And then parking, there's some parking limitations in terms of how close folks could put a car to the trout stream. We're keeping them out of the shore impact zone. That's a 50-foot setback from the bank. Beyond that, the board would be free to require additional information above and beyond that.
I like the attendance limitation, because with social media, I guess, some of this stuff can get out of hand. You know, I was going to say a gauge could be, there's going to be one in West Salem at the old Maple Grove Country Club this summer, but that's a whole different population. So that might not be a good gauge to how this could operate, but
It's not specified in here, but my understanding from the conversation that took place at the planning commission hearing is that these are ticketed events. So the attendance is, that's how they generate the revenue they're raising for the
so it'd all be
organization.
pre-ticketed.
Right, so
Yeah.
they would be able to control if somebody sent out a tweet, they can't create
Right.
tickets by that, so folks wouldn't be able to come in to the event if they tried to come.
The basic reason, I think, for a limitation on the number of people there is the obvious limitation of parking. And we really can't have people parking on that county road or on the road up to the campground, because then there just isn't visibility. It becomes dangerous. So,
Or for emergency vehicles would be able to get
That's
through.
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, it looks-
There are other conditions on this permit above and beyond the approval of the
Yep.
concerts, but that's an
Right.
unusual condition, so I thought it warranted discussion here this morning, and it puts a burden on you folks. You'll have to spend some time potentially discussing those events moving forward. Other questions regarding the recommendation?
Sounds like you went through it in great detail.
Yeah,
There again,
it
there's
wasn't a
lot of
real
good
quick
detail.
meeting, let's put it that way.
No, if it can work, I think it'd be a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there might be ways to get around the parking, busing and stuff for concerts, it's not very
Yeah.
far out of town.
That was discussed too, and yeah, that's feasible.
Yep.
If there's no additional questions, I would need a motion to adopt the findings prepared by the planning commission and incorporate the conditions recommended by the planning commission to grant this permit.
I'll make a motion to approve the planning commission's recommendation and to adopt the planning commission's
Findings.
findings.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. You look pretty thorough.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Commissioners.
Aaron. Carol?
I think it'd be a good thing for the county.
Yeah. If it, at least, it's gotta go in front of us if it's doing bad once. We need it changed.
Good morning.
Morning.
Included in your packet was a budget amendment request that we received from, I received from the county attorney's office, and they would like to increase their professional services line item by $500 because of expert witness testimony that they will have to actually be paying for in a, I guess it had the details on there, a child criminal sexual conduct case. And I guess I would recommend approving that because they don't have the money to cover it, and they want to make sure with the courts that they're, doing things the way they would need to be.
This is something that doesn't normally come up. to be budgeted,
I think they had one last year, and we did the same thing.
budgeted for one, and we've had more, is that? what
Well,
it looks
it,
like?
it gets more expensive, you know. There are other items included in that original $1,500 that was budgeted, that they pay for, and this would be on top, you know, a little more than what they would have left to cover the expert testimony. And I thought Sam would be here to help
To
out, but
talk about
he's,
it.
he's, could possibly be working on this case, because they did put in the request, and I said that if it was something where the court case came up before you had actually given approval, that, you know, of course, don't stop your court case because of this, because it is $500, but they like to have it reflected, just to make sure that they're covered there.
So it's a 500 is what we're asking for.
Right, they have $1,500 in the budget right now, but the total with this testimony and the other things that they pay for out of that line item, they need the additional $500.
Okay, see, amount to add looked like 5,000.
That's for,
Original
that's
budget.
for somebody else.
Oh, that helps.
Oh, that's an.
That helps.
There you go. This is the one that was actually included in the packet. I've been
Okay.
working on 4 budget amendments. Only, this one was really the only one that was completed. The one that I gave you this morning is for the recycling department. Their furnace, their used oil furnace, stopped working a couple weeks ago.
That-
And I guess there are the details on there. Modular and a gasket leak, and they have to take the part off and take it to La Crosse to have it boiled out. Rick isn't here today either to help with this, but it's something that we actually wanted to get into motion, because it is the main source of heat for the recycling center, and if it's something that's, you know, that's more than this, we want to make sure that we can get that taken care of before we need it again. This is also, residents bring their used oil, and that's what's used in the furnace. So it's actually not just for heating the recycling center, it's actually part of our recycling program to have it available for people too. So it is a quote of $5,000 to get that taken care of. So even though Rick isn't here today, I said I would present this to, so that we can get working on it.
So they would move this, the original budget was 500, we're gonna make it 5,000 to cover this furnace. And is it-
5,500 to, we'd add the $5,000.
Oh, we add 500 and make it 5,500.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So do you need 2 separate motions for each of these?
No, the budget amendments can be approved as one.
So I'm gonna ask the obvious question. It's 80 degrees out.
Mhm.
Why is this rush right now?
Well, you know, to take the part off and take it over and then have it, you know, put back on, I don't know what their schedule is, but what if it's not just that? You know, then we're getting in, some things are slow, and I would probably prefer to have it done just in case we have to look at something else before it is that time.
Do you know how old that furnace is? Like, I mean, is it,
I don't.
okay.
I don't, but I would assume to replace a used oil furnace would be considerably higher than the $5,000 that they believe will fix it. Mhm. And this too could wait until Rick is back. He could probably give you more details on a furnace than,
He's really only adding $500 to what he's already budgeted.
no,
No,
he's at
5,000.
5,000.
Oh, he's adding 5,000 to the 500.
I guess
Okay.
personally, it's up to the rest of the board. I wouldn't mind having Rick ask some questions, because if the furnace is getting like really, really old, then do we need to look at $5,000 for a part for a furnace is a lot of money. For that part, I'm only questioning how close are we to totaling that thing out?
Yeah.
I guess, you know, before we stick 5,000 and they go, oh yeah, we fixed that part, but it really isn't that part.
Right. And like I said, you know, Rick isn't
Yeah,
here,
or if
so
it's
I'm
gonna
not.
fix it
Mhm.
for
I just
6
wanted,
months.
it
Right.
also is a heads up for you.
Right.
It,
Yeah.
if you want to
Talk
wait.
to Rick
and
ahead of time,
have him.
or
Mhm.
I think
But just to keep things in your mind too, as to, there's probably going to be a cost of some sort well, there will be a
Right.
cost of some sort involved
It's whether
in updating that
this is the
furnace.
right way
Yeah.
or more to get new.
And give you a chance, Carol, to learn more about furnaces.
Yeah.
Okay. But there are a couple more budget amendments that are being worked on, and one actually has to do with Travis coming to the board, which I didn't feel should be presented before you approve his purchase, so
So,
there'll be more coming down the line.
okay, yeah, so do you want us to approve the one?
The one for Sam's office would
Yep.
be the one to approve.
I'll motion to approve a $500 budget amendment for the county attorney's office.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Carol. Oh, yeah. She is there. You were blocked behind Brian a little bit. I wasn't sure you were there for a minute. You're up, Tess.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Lauren.
Want to see if maybe contact
Well, I have a very brief agenda for you this morning.
See if maybe she could come over early. You maybe contact,
Travis, I
Travis.
was just doing that now.
thank you.
Good for you.
We had a resignation come in several days ago from Chuck Ingram, Highway Maintenance Specialist, who's leaving our employ. He left, not leaving, he left our employ May 5th. So I respectfully request that you confirm, for the record, the resignation. And then we will be in a second motion asking to initiate an immediate search for Highway Maintenance Specialist.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All
I'd
those,
I'd
oops.
like to thank him for his 2+ years of service.
3 years of county
years of
service,
service.
nearly 3. You're correct.
Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
And the second is the recommendation to initiate an immediate search for the Highway Maintenance Specialist.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried.
And just to give you a little heads up, we may be requesting out of this search a second operator out of that. I'll have to get back to you on that as far as staffing. Okay? There may be a second retirement resignation forthcoming. And we try to make best use of our advertising dollars we can. So, but we're not quite there yet. Thank you. Had a hard job, didn't you?
He handled it well.
Yeah.
The strong, silent type.
And is anyone here from Sheriff's Office? No? Sheriff's Office and HR Office is recommending the hire of Michael Lee as a transport officer, which is a 67-day temporary position to add to the pool that we previously brought forth. This would be at the hourly rate of $15.23 per hour, and of course conditioned upon successful completion of background check.
I'll make a motion to approve Michael Lee as the transport officer.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
And the last item on the agenda is not really an HR item, but a board item, and it's there for your consideration with the Board of Adjustments. HR oversaw a search process for a Board of Adjustment interviews of 2 candidates, and the recommendation of the committee is in your packet. And for board discussion and action. Some of the information that's there is the search committee was recommend the appointment of Brian Van Gorp as a member of the Board of Adjustments to complete the balance of a 3-year term ending December 31, 2020. And I'll verify with, oops, he left, I believe, with Aaron, those were the dates. The search committee was comprised of Board Chair Arnold and Aaron Locker.
And
And Mr. Commissioner
Chocolate.
Miller.
You're not
So soon, I forgot you.
you've got a blind spot there.
It was a 3-member committee.
I have a concern about it, and I have spoken to Tess about it and our chair, Mr. Van Gorp, and maybe it's because for the last 7 years I've been targeted for criticism on this board from Mr. Van Gorp, and he's had lawsuits against us, ethics complaints. He's criticized the commissioners, planning commission, zoning administrator, and officers, and the office. And I feel that he has an agenda that should not be allowed to be on the Board of Adjustment because of those concerns.
I think that all of the members of the interview committee struggled with that situation. And what an individual does, this is my opinion, what an individual does as a private citizen promoting a point of view can be, or should be, and hopefully will be, quite a different thing than serving on a public board. That's one point. The other point is this group, the Board of Commissioners, does have oversight on the Board of Adjustment as far as its appointments are concerned. And we have an obligation to the public that if there is obvious, and we have tapes of, we have video of the Board of Adjustment meetings, and if there are obvious instances where an individual on the Board of Adjustment is furthering their private opinions separate from the things that are presented at a Board of Adjustment meeting, we have an obligation to do something about that. I'll stop there and see how much more discussion evolves.
Well, I appreciate Teresa's concerns, you know, obviously cognizant of what she reviewed. I think I was very direct during the interview process to address this in a manner with Mr. Van Gorp. I think I used the term an axe to grind, and I was very pleased with his response. I think from the point of knowing the county, knowing the ordinances, having intellectual capacity, and I just think he's well qualified, and feel that he would come to the board with an objective view and not to push an agenda. So I was happy to be one who recommended him.
Is there any further discussion?
I will, for this particular instance, because of Mr. Van Gorp being in my district and being on the same side of a lot of the issues I am, for, I guess, appearance issues, I will abstain on this vote.
Okay.
I said I'm abstaining on the vote.
Any further comments?
I'm just gonna say that I feel strongly what Teresa said also, but I believe that we put this, I'm hoping Mr. Van Gorp can do what's necessary, and I think he can. I think we put this committee together to hire somebody to give us their best person that they believe. They went through the interview process. They think he's got the potential and the knowledge. I'd say I'd stick with my committee that selected the person to offer to me.
If it's helpful, I will add as the, having HREEO oversight of the process, I didn't have any reservations with how the committee was going through the process, the questions, the follow-up, the diligence that they used in carrying out their function.
I would make a motion then to approve Brian Van Gorp for, to be on the Board of Adjustment.
We have a motion. We need a second.
Call for roll call?
Now, we still need a second,
Still
though.
do. I'll second.
Okay. The one thing that I would add to this, somebody talked very briefly about process, and we do have a pretty carefully worked out process for the appointments for the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Commission, and we've been through that process, and I was comfortable with the process when we put it in place, and I still am. And that's the way the process is playing out. Okay. Yeah, we should do a roll call. Okay.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Abstain.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
No.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
Do you have anything else this morning?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Lapham.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Lorna?
I have 2 agenda items this morning. The first is the yearly federal supplemental boating safety enforcement grant of $5,000. We get this every year. It helps with funding for patrolling the Mississippi River, looking for safety violations, including boating while intoxicated, wearing your life vests, and so on. So I'm asking for approval of that grant and a resolution naming the sheriff as the authorized signer for that specific grant moving forward.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. The second, if you recall, probably thinking 6 to 8 months ago, I came before the board and got approval to take part in the ATV enforcement grant. It's a 2-year grant, and it totals just over $10,000. And I've been working with Carol, the finance director, on this as well. I'm looking into buying a ATV to use for patrols, to use for safety classes, which the sheriff's office would be putting on along with other agencies within Houston County, and also for search and rescues. I reached out to M&M Lawn and Leisure, and I also reached out to Walk On Power Sports per our county procurement policy, and I found the four-wheeler that I would find best fits our needs is the 2018 Polaris, totaling 6520.
What model is that? Is that a
It is
Sportsman?
the Sportsman 570.
Sure.
Walk-On Power Sports also gave quotes for that same machine, and then also gave me a quote for a 2018 Kodiak Yamaha 450 and a Kodiak 700, both of which are more expensive. They didn't have a 570, so I just got both, one on each end of it. So
Yeah.
I thought we had an ATV. Don't you have one? in
we
your
have
department?
we have an ATV that we well, we have a mule that the posse uses, and then about 2 years ago we acquired an ATV that was involved in an accident, and the owner's wife didn't want it anymore. So we do have that. However, it's quite old. I tried to see what they'd give us for trade-in, and they wouldn't even give us $500 for it.
What machine is that? Do you remember?
I think it's a 350. It's red. I don't recall
Is
the
that
make.
something we can put on the auction this year?
Potentially.
I guess what I'm getting at is, do we need to have two four-wheelers and a UTV?
Probably not. We'd probably look at trying to get rid of it, but the trade-in value just wasn't worth it.
Right, yeah.
So I guess I want to weigh it out, see what we can do with it. There's probably not going to be a need to have two ATVs. That ATV does have a winch on it. And
The new
one
one or the old one?
The old one does.
Could we put that on the new one?
Potentially, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for is just approval to purchase the ATV with the grant funding.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Action items. Approve claims, human service, and license center disbursements.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And snowmobile trail assistance application for Viking Ridge riders.
I'll make a motion to approve the snowmobile trail assistance application for Viking Ridge Riders.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. And the consent agenda,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
moved and seconded. Discussion? Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Discussion items.
Well, I was on the airport consultants interviews along with Justin, which we already addressed this morning. A reminder that June 4th is our district meeting in Owatonna, and I will not be able to attend that one, so make sure somebody does, or all of you. Fred will have to give a report, I presume.
Did you say it's in?
Well,
I think it's in Owatonna, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at Owatonna. I'm definitely planning on going.
Okay, just a reminder, May 22nd, we have our Board of Health meeting in the afternoon, and I presume it's still at 1 o'clock, right? We missed it the last time.
I don't think we
but
ever did change
we're-
that.
I haven't heard anything
Then it's
different
been
than 1
changed. It's
o'clock.
still 1 o'clock in Mabel,
Yeah.
okay? We have an extension meeting, joint extension meeting with Fillmore County on the 29th, which I told Fred I should be able to attend. We just have to find out where.
Yeah, she hasn't responded yet.
Not yet.
I emailed her back and said, hey, we'd like to know where it is, but, okay,
And I
we'll
did-
find out.
And I did get a letter from the city of Brownsville as I distribute to the rest of you concerning their assessment values in the city, and they want to meet with they want us to have request the assessor's office to review the property tax values in the city to be fair to all the residents. And evidently, there's, some of them went up 40%. I did mention it to Cindy this morning, and she hadn't had a chance to talk to Carl about it. But they really want to know why or what's going on. They need to meet with the assessor's office. So, and I think that's, we all got the 164-page review of the jail reuse study. But I think Jack is following up on that, getting more information, right, Jack?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Met out the highway shop. They've staked a proposed estimated pond area. And we've set up a meeting tentatively for 1 p.m. next week, next Monday, the 14th, to meet with the landowners in the city to review the area for, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then where we want the pond is where all concerned parties feel it should be. And that's about it.
Commissioner Connor and I met with Brian Bodazinski last week one day, I can't remember what day it was, and went out and looked the situation over, and we're comfortable with what we hope we can get done. We
And
don't,
this is
until
meeting
we
with the
have this
city?
meeting on Monday, we aren't sure
Landowners.
what we can get done. That's a fairly critical meeting.
Yes.
Teresa kind of already covered our airport committee meeting. The only other thing that I was just going to bring up formally, I've talked to, I think, all of you individually to see as far as if any other commissioners are planning on going to DC for that legislative conference going on at the White House. I don't think anybody else is planning on going, but I am going to go. So it'll be the end of May. Other than that,
Will you miss a board meeting? Do you know?
no.
That's, yeah, we
It's,
don't have one last
I think it's
Tuesday.
Thursday and Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, I fly out Wednesday, and then it'd be Thursday, Friday, so I'd be back on the weekend. So, yeah. So, other than that, that's about it.
Okay. Well, the Personnel Committee had negotiations with Lieutenants Union and asked me, I think the Lieutenants meeting went well. I think we've made some progress. We haven't concluded anything. AFSCME was a mediation meeting. Again, some progress, but we have another meeting set for, I think it's the 29th. EDA met on Wednesday. Fred and I already discussed that. Last night I had a Hiawatha Valley Mental Health meeting in Winona. They've begun phase 1 of the renovation of the purchased building. And the 2 buildings that they are trying to sell are kind of at a stalemate at the present time. They've got someone touring the building this week, the building on Main Street. See where that goes. They're anxious to sell them because the money would be very useful, obviously, in the renovation. And as far as the jail reuse, I spoke with La Crescent contractor who recommended we use $50 per square foot, and which would, and I think we talked last time or the time before about looking at 1 floor. And if we do that and use $50 a square foot, we're very much back in the ballpark, I think, in terms of reuse.
Yeah. Just you gotta add, are you thinking windows for all when you start? Or just, just windows on 1 floor?
I guess that's what we'd have to.
Yeah, you know, plumbing, you just about gotta do as a whole, at least, you know,
Yeah.
stubs. Yeah. But, you know, your original floor is gonna probably be a lot more expensive than future floors, I would think, because of just how you gotta kinda set things up. If you have plumbers and electricians, you gotta.
And, yeah, and we'd have to allow for the future of.
Elevator.
Elevator.
Right.
But, so.
So the elevator wouldn't be part of the original plan?
I don't think so, just, you know, figured out where it would be, boxed out, ready.
Right.
Type of thing, but, because we can get grants in different sections, so we were hoping that if we could do a floor, then we could reapply for a grant and move up.
Yeah, that's the thought.
The
It seemed like
basic,
the article or the information we got was going to be sent in for, is that for application for grants or what?
I don't think so. At this point, I think it's had to go to the Historical Society to say what all we've done, and that we've done everything we're supposed to do
Okay.
to this
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
To get the grant,
Yeah,
for the
wh-
grant money of what they did, for all the information we got so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish Tess were here,
Yeah,
but
she-
that's
Yeah.
my understanding, pretty much what.
Rough ball.
Completion of our grant that we were awarded.
Right.
Report to them.
Okay.
the basic problem, of course, that we're having with it is that the costs that came back from the people doing the study were, we felt, just totally out of line.
I know they were.
And that's kind of what
Yeah.
we're working on at this point, to try to get, if more, what we feel are
Let's get
more
realistic
realistic
costs.
numbers are actually viable, why then,
Right.
then we're in the ballpark then. If we have to go back to the numbers that were given to us by the reuse study people, we got a problem.
Yep.
What it amounts to. The meeting that hasn't been touched on here that I attended was the local Soil and Water Conservation District meeting. One of the main things that we talked about there was the implementation of the buffer regulations and what the relationship is going to be between the Soil and Water Conservation District as to how they go about their work in determining whether things are actually being done right, and then if somebody isn't doing it, where does the handoff occur and who does the work relative to handing it off to us as far as enforcement. And that still has to be worked on and figured out. The main problem with it right now appears to me to be a situation where almost all of the counties in Minnesota have done what we did, and we did it because everybody else was doing it too, and nobody wants to be the first one up to the plate and get involved in a lawsuit on this thing. And, of course, there are people that feel very strongly that this buffer business is completely an infringement on their rights as a landowner. So it probably somewhere at some point in time, probably fairly soon, is going to go to court. And everybody's trying to avoid being the first.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna add to that real quick.
There it is.
I had a farmer approach me this last week about that very matter.
Yeah.
The issue is, you know, some farmers have potential to get that into a CRP program and get some money on the idle land. But there's only so many acres of CRP available, and those that didn't get in the program aren't going to get money on it. The issue that I think is at hand is what is the definition of a taking? of land, in the aspect that, by definition, a taking means that you've exhausted all economic sources for that property. So if you could graze cattle on it, it's not a taking, because you could still graze cattle on it and make money off of it. If you could still put it in CRP, whatever. If you can't, if you literally cannot do anything with it, and it's land left and idle, those farmers paid for that land, paid taxes on that land, but can't utilize that land all of a sudden. And that's where I think a lot of the farmers are getting upset is, I literally have no value left. It was, there's no opportunity for that. I don't know, I was going to talk to some legislators and see what the deal is as far as, and I know, CRP being more federal or something, but even if the state would be willing to do something as far, opening up a similar program for an extended period of time, or do something, but I think that's the big argument that the farmers are having, or could you at least hay it so you have vegetation there, but at least you could get hay off of it, so it's not going to erode, but you can at least use it for something. I think is the big issue that, and I think that's why it's going to go to court, is because we bought the land, we use it all, and you're saying I can't use it for anything. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, the problem, of course, with grazing it is that you're talking a 50-foot wide strip, and how do you fence that?
Well,
and then you're right next to the water, and you've got cattle wandering around there. Yeah, well, okay.
Well, and it's the whole contamination. If you had animals there anyway, you couldn't do it. So you can't
it's a mess.
You can't graze it. You can't do anything. So what good is it?
And of course, to hay it, why it's right next to the water.
Well, and you're kind of,
and you might wind up with a machine down in the creek.
That's just it. I mean, what do you do? And that's the dilemma.
It's difficult.
It is.
And the attorneys will eventually solve it. But
or attempt to.
Well, yeah, probably create more problems.
True.
But in any event, now, we talk about the 29th. Do we want to have another board retreat on the 29th? We don't have a meeting scheduled then, and we had a retreat, 3 months ago, and we felt we had a productive situation there, and the question is, do we want to do that again on the 29th? We don't need to decide that this morning, but we need
to check that date with.
We need to try to hold that open, and I suppose technically we need to put that on the agenda for next meeting so we can officially talk about it.
Good idea.
Yep.
So keep in mind, if you've got, if there's nothing that we need to talk about, why, no, we don't need it. But if there's things that people want to talk about, again, for the public, for the press, this is simply a meeting of the board. No motions made, no decisions made, just discussion about various situations that we deal with. Okay? Anything else on discussion items? Closing public comment.
Yvonne Krogstad, Caledonia Township. As you were talking about the jail, it just occurred to me, is there handicap accessibility without an elevator as it stands now? Because I know the one entrance, there's steps outside. The other entrance, there's steps inside.
Yeah, I believe going to the south from the west entrance, there's handicap accessibility.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when you were talking about no elevator, that,
Right, you can get to the first floor.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? I look at the clock and I think, my goodness gracious, I've even got time to finish my round of golf before dinner.
I feel like we've covered a lot in only an hour.
That's important.
It feels like it should be 11.
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
I'd second.
Real quick, we don't have anything this afternoon for anything, do we? No meetings? Okay.
No. Okay, moved and seconded. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are adjourned.